Hello, my name is Rob Garner, a computer programming instructor, and today we're going to learn how to read from a file. So last time we wrote some code to write a file with a single line of data and then one with multiple lines. We used a \n to do carriage return, so we got 3 lines of information on our files. And today we're going to write a program to read a file. And so we progress very similar to what we did before. We open a file for read by specifying the file name. And then, so this is going to open some file.txt for read. And then what we need to do is execute a read command. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say first read is equal to f.read 4. And then, as always, let's make sure we close our file after we're done. So wait, what's it doing? Well, if we look at some file, we can see that by reading only 4 characters, it just reads that number 4 here said read 4 characters. Let's read 5. And we just get hello. So if you read and then you provide a number, it says read the number of characters. What happens if we put just f.read? We get the whole thing. So if you want to read the entire file, you just put f.read. If you just want to read a certain number of characters, you put a number in there. That number is really not super useful anymore. So we typically don't read, just read 10 characters or 5 characters. We're going to show you a few other ways that we're going to read our file. But we'll do this to read the whole thing. There was a time when files stored information in a numerically limited type. So the first 10 characters might be one field, the next 20 characters might be another field, the next 15 characters might be another field. And you would do successive read commands with a certain number. That was very inefficient because often you ended up with a lot of spaces in your program when you read that way. So these days, we are usually using f.read. And I'm going to change this to this. So it's clear that that's going to read the entire file. So that's one way of reading our file. So the read command reads data from the file. And a number will read just 4 characters. So we will tend to use this format when we're using the read command. And that works fine, but let's say that you have a really, really long file. So, typically, a hard drive can have 3 gig large files on it if you wanted to, but you probably don't want to read that huge file into your limited RAM, which is what's happening when you're reading that file. You don't want to read that huge file into your RAM as one big long string and use up all your memory. And so more often than not, you're not going to read the entire file all at once. You're going to read the file a line at a time using the read line command. So I'm going to make a new program called readline demo. And again, we're going to open a file. We're going to read. We're going to open the multi-line file for read. By the way, read is the default, so you really don't need to say read. You can just, when you're opening for reading, you can just give the name of the file. And let's do this. Let's say line is equal to f dot read line, and then print the line, and then f dot close. Multi-line file.text. So we got one line of text. If we look at our multi-line file, it got this one. So we can see that with read line, we get one line of text. Well, how could we get all of our lines of text? Well, we could do this perhaps. We could say line 1 equals read line, line 2 equals read line, line 3 equals read line, and then we could print line 1, 2, and 3. And we would in fact get all lines of our text. Notice too that we get an extra carriage return in there. Why is that? Well, it's because our file has a carriage return at the end. It's actually reading that carriage return, and then we're getting one from the line and one from the print. That's why you'll see an empty line show up. As you can imagine, this is not ideal, because what happens if, say, suddenly the file changed and now we read it. We still only get 3 lines of text, but now there's 4 in there. So this is not an ideal way of reading a file. So instead of reading it like this, we tend to do it this way. We say while true, so we're going to create an infinite loop, and then we're going to say f.readLine, so that will read a line, and then we're going to look at that. We're going to say if not line, break. And what that will do is it'll break out of this loop if we didn't read anything. And then we'll print line, just to, or do whatever we want to do with it. And now we can read all 4 lines of text. If it changes, we always, with this approach, no matter how the file changes, we will always read all of the lines. So this is the preferred way of reading a file, especially a long file, is to read a line at a time. There are some other ways. There's another command called readlines. It's different from readline because it's plural. It says readlines. And here we're going to open our multi-line file again. And here what you can do is you can say f.readlines, and notice the S. This is different than readline. This has an S in it. It's plural. And let's see what we get. And what you get is you get a list with all your lines in here. So that seems convenient because then you could, rather than do it this way, you could say, I can get all of my lines out. I get them all into this lines variable at one time, and then I can iterate through them. And it seems like this would be a great way to do it. But realize that what this does is if you have a really large file, readlines is going to bring the entire file into memory all at one time. So it may not be, readlines is convenient, but it's not necessarily efficient from a memory perspective. So I would avoid readlines for the most part, unless you know for sure it's a efficient file or a small file. Closing files, it's important to close your files, and often we will, what's recommended is you put your close in a finally block. That way, if there's an error, this file will always close. So we would see and we'll just take our read line demo. You might do it like this. Try and then put the close in a finally. And this guarantees that our file will be closed. So if I run this, our file gets closed. And so one of the things that's inconvenient about this is if we put our open in here, then, well, we'll still get an error. Our file will definitely be closed, but okay, now this becomes kind of problematic. So there's another approach, and it's this. Here what we're doing is saying with open a file as F, do this. And this will automatically close the file. So we actually don't even need to do that. And this format is currently what's more desired because we can use our file and it'll be guaranteed to be closed. So if I try to do this, we'll still get that. And then what we can do is we can put this into a try. And now we get a nice exception that handles the error. So this is actually has everything that we need. We can try opening up our file. The with will guarantee that it gets closed, and the except will tell us that if there was an error.